Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to Good Orderly Direction, Practical Tools of the Bible. Today we're discussing number 16, Korah and On's Envy. I'm your host, Dr. Donnelly Snipes. Now, it wasn't too long ago we talked about Miriam and Aaron's jealousy, and envy and jealousy are really kind of similar words for the same thing. We see that this keeps coming up, and it is a very insidious human emotion. So let's look at how this plays out. Korah and On became insolent and rose up against Moses. With them, there were 250 Israelite community leaders who had been appointed members of the council. They came as a group to oppose Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You've gone too far. The whole community is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is with them. Why do you set yourselves above God's assembly?" They're assuming that Moses and Aaron have set themselves apart. They are not recognizing the unique skills and abilities that Moses and Aaron bring to the assembly. But because of their jealousy, because of their envy, they created dissension among 250 leaders. It wasn't just 250 random people. They found 250 leaders that they could get on their side in order to try to create an uprising. Now, in the New Testament, we hear in Romans 12:4 and 7, "For as in one body we have many members, and all the members do not all have the same function, so we, though many, are one body in Christ, and individually members of one another. Having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, let us use them. If it is prophecy, prophesy in proportion to our faith. If service, in our serving. The one who teaches, in his teaching." And that's what I keep saying, and I've been saying for a lot of videos, that it's important to recognize that none of us is the full body. None of us is a standalone community. We all have our own unique skills, talents, and abilities that synergize with others to create an exponentially more powerful whole. When Moses heard this, he fell face down. Then he said to Korah and all of his followers, "In the morning, the Lord will show who belongs to him and who is holy, and he will have that person come near him." Then Moses summoned Dathan and Abiram, but they said, "We will not come." "Isn't it enough that you've brought us up out of the land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness?" Okay, so now they're saying Egypt was this land of milk and honey, that they just suddenly came from this wonderful place where, remember, they were slaves. So they're romanticizing the past. "And now you want to lord it over us. Moreover, you haven't brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey or given us an inheritance of fields or vineyards. You haven't done your job, so I don't need to follow you. I can do it better." How many times have we heard that? I'm uncomfortable right now, so I'm going to do it my way because that'll make me feel more in control and make me feel better. How many times have we said that about our life, about our recovery, about anything? These men may have envied Moses and Aaron for their place. This comes on the heels of the defeat in Canaan and the stoning of the man collecting wood. So there was a lot going on that was causing frustration among the Israelites. They may have been tired of ecclesiastical rule and want to return to what seemed like a better life, that of the Egyptian practices or individual independence. They didn't want to be beholden to other people. They didn't want to feel responsible for other people. They wanted to have their cake and eat it too. They're blaming Moses instead of looking at their own role in the defeat in Canaan, for example, and the man collecting the wood. He knew better, and he did it anyway. They are blaming Moses because they're uncomfortable instead of being grateful for how far they've come and that they're no longer slaves. The grass is always greener, as they say. And 1 Samuel 8 really talks about this. It's easy to think the way I had it was better, or that person has it better, and not pay attention to what you have that is good and holy and wonderful. Why is it important during challenging times to have a strong leader? Yes, it can seem frustrating to have to give up some power, to have to follow somebody else, especially for people who are naturally sort of alpha in nature. But a strong leader is often less swayed by moment-to-moment emotions, and they are more prudent in that they can see more objectively what's going on and encourage people to do the next right thing, encourage people to stay on the path of good, orderly direction. Moses said to Korah, "You and all your followers are to appear before the Lord tomorrow, you and they and Aaron. Each man is to take his censer and put incense in it, 250 censers in all, and present it before the Lord. You and Aaron are to present your censers also." When Korah gathered all his followers in opposition to them at the entrance to the tent of meeting, the glory of God appeared to the entire assembly. In today's world, we may see things like this when one faction tries to overthrow another, especially a much stronger group. They start feeling their oats and they try to create chaos and anxiety in the stronger group in order to have them kind of fall apart and destroy their unity. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Separate yourselves from this assembly so I can put an end to them at once." But Moses and Aaron fell face down and cried out, "O God, the God who gives breath to all living things, will you be angry with the entire assembly when only one man sins?" The Lord said to Moses, "Say to the assembly, move away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram." God demands accounting for rebellion, but he also tries not to punish the innocent. This harkens back to Exodus when Abraham pleaded with God to spare the innocent in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Even though he is a self-proclaimed jealous and wrathful God, he feels his anger, which anger is a feeling. We need to feel it. We need to acknowledge it. Doesn't mean we have to act on it. God feels his anger, but acts prudently, talking to Moses and listening before deciding on a course of action. How can we learn from God to accept feelings but act with prudence, respect, compassion, and selflessness? Moses got up and went to Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. He warned the assembly, "Move back from the tents of these wicked men. Do not touch anything belonging to them, or you will be swept away because of all of their sins." Then Moses said, "This is how you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things, and it was not my idea. If these men die a natural death and suffer the fate of all mankind, then the Lord hasn't sent me. But if the earth opens its mouth and swallows them, and they go down alive into the realm of the dead, then you will know that these men have treated the Lord with contempt." As soon as he finished saying all this, the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their households and all those associated with Korah, together with their possessions. They went down alive into the realm of the dead with everything they owned. The earth closed over them, and they perished and were gone from the community. This may be a literal account of what happened, or may have represented them being cast out into the deep wilderness. I tend to like the more humane second interpretation, but it was important to recognize these people are inciting rebellion, and we cannot maintain unity in the community if they stay here. They've gone too far. And so excommunicating them, it's going to be hard for a group that small to survive in the wilderness, to grow their own food, to manage their own livestock, to protect against foreign invaders. At their cries, all the Israelites around them fled, shouting, "The earth is going to swallow us too!" And fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering incense. Now let's look at a little bit of a sciencey explanation here. In order to produce the smoke needed to please God, the incense was made with combustible materials. Since 250 censers were being offered all at once, it may have been sufficient to ignite a powerful fire. How might this have been an intentional decision by Moses based on good orderly direction? How might this have been Moses's way to bring the presence of God before the people, to make them believe that there was something greater than them, something, a spirit that was all powerful that could show up and consume them at any time? The next day, the whole Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. "You've killed the Lord's people," they said. But when the assembly gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron and turned toward the tent of meeting, suddenly the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. Uh-oh. Then Moses and Aaron went to the front of the tent of meeting, and the Lord said to Moses, "Get away from this assembly so I can put an end to them all at once." And they fell face down. Fell face down is often used to represent prayer and total attention to God. So Moses and Aaron were like, "Oh, I need a minute to be mindful." With all this grumbling, it would be natural to want to think it might be prudent to dispense with those who are not showing respect. But Moses and Aaron chose the high road. Put incense in it, along with burning coals from the altar, and hurried to the assembly to make atonement for them. Wrath has come out from the Lord. The plague has started. Some speculate that Moses had burned something toxic in the tent of meeting, which was dispersed in the cloud that he and Aaron had already taken an antidote for. So Aaron did as Moses said and ran into the midst of the assembly. The plague had already started among the people, but Aaron offered incense and made atonement for them. He stood between the living and the dead, and the plague stopped. But 14,700 people died from the plague. Another sort of sciencey explanation by some is that the spices used in incense may have been medicinal. Inhalation of frankincense essential oil or the burning of frankincense resin was often used to relieve respiratory issues like coughs and bronchitis and reduce airway inflammation. So if whatever that toxin was had caused people to have basically a really bad asthma attack and not be able to get enough oxygen, then this may have been the antidote. That's for the people who want to try to find a sciencey explanation. So let's reflect on this. Nobody is always happy with how things are going. That's just the way, part of being human. You're not always going to like how things are going. How are you, like Korah and On, thinking that you can do it your way and shouldn't have to follow best practices, shouldn't have to follow good orderly direction? Why is it important in your recovery and in your life to have a strong leader, be it another human or God, to help you promote safety and unity among your community? Why is it important to have leadership in recovery circles? We have sponsors, we have leadership in politics, in our actual communities. We have governments that help provide leadership. And in churches, we have pastors, priests, rabbis, spiritual leaders that help us stay focused and motivated to follow good orderly direction.